Today I'll be working in my workbook called Elijah. This is one of the first workbooks I've made, so it's a little bit easier. And it's on a person, not so much scriptures. I mean, it is on scriptures, but it doesn't follow a sequence of scriptures. Anyway, this is on Elijah the prophet. Looking at the table of contents, if we can, we'll be starting with chapter 1. But let's see. So we don't really have any review here. This Elijah lives during the time of the split kingdom. And let's see here. Looking here, we know that Elijah was 874 years before Christ. All righty. And it's during the time of the split kingdoms. And so here's the kings of Judah and Israel. Elijah was during the time of Ahab, which is in Israel, and he was a very bad king. And so that's the time that Elijah existed. So let's start. Elijah helps a widow, 1 Kings 17, 1 through 24. And Elijah, the Tishbite of the inhabitants of Gilead, said to Ahab, "As the Lord God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be any dew or rain these years except at my word." Now, this is the first time when we have met Elijah. And this is, we already can see that he's a inhabitant of Gilead. That's a town. And he's a Tishbite, but he's also a prophet. Who is Elijah? We know really very little about Elijah's family or his years as a boy. We only know one thing about him, and see Malachi 4:5. Every once in a while, I do this. I make it where you have to look at the Bible outside of my workbook. I've tried to stay away from that, but and the new books, but some of the old books still have it. And of course, I have Malachi on the bottom here. And it see, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. So we only know one thing about him, and that he will be, that he will come before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So he is going to appear again. And some people feel, well, Jesus talks about John the Baptist as being a type of Elijah. So there is that, but also too, the two witnesses in Revelation. Many people feel one of those is Elijah. But anyway, where is Tishba? And so looking at the map, we will see Tishba. So, circle on the map. Okay, so Tishba is right here. Whereas Gilead is an area east of the Jordan River that includes Tishba and Ramoth Gilead. Circle Ramoth Gilead. So it's got to be near, so it's also there. Okay. Who is Ahab? Now, I just showed you the map of the list of kings, and you can go there. Let's see, which kingdom did he rule? Israel or Judah? He ruled Israel. How many kings before them were there? And there were 6 kings before Ahab. Was he a good or bad king? Definitely a bad king. Can you figure out who was the king of Judah at the same time? It's not as easy as it looks, because they didn't have the same amount of years in each of their reigns. So you see here on Israel, we have Ahab. And so he had 22 years of his reigns. But who was there at the same time was Jehoshaphat. He started 1 year before Ahab and was king of Judah all during Ahab's rule. So Jehoshaphat was 1 year before, because Asia had so many years, covers many of these years here. So Jehoshaphat is the king of Judah all during Ahab's rule. Okay. Okay. Then the word of the Lord came to him, that is Elijah. Get away from here and turn eastward and hide by the brook Cherith, which flows into the Jordan, and it will be that you shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. The brook Cherith is southeast of Jericho. Find Jericho on the map and circle it. Okay, so we have Jericho. Okay. Fine. Okay, we did that. The brook Cherith feeds into the river Jordan. Put a line on the river Jordan from the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee. So, as far as the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee, there isn't a strong line here, but there is technically a line right here that is the River Jordan. How long was the drought going to last? And remember, he said on this page, he said, we don't know yet how many years, a number of years. What at First Kings 18:1, which is below here, says, after a long time in the third year. So the drought is going to last 3 years. So we went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and stayed by the brook Cherith, which flows into the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. And it happened after a while that the brook dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. See, I've commanded a widow there to provide for you. So he stays along the brook Cherith until that whole brook dries up. And then God is going to move him, and he's going to move him outside of the area of Israel. He's going to move him into a territory that is not owned by Israel, and it's Zarephath. Find Zarephath and circle it. Find Sidon and circle that. Okay. Sorry. Boom. Okay. Okay. Make a line from Jericho to Zarephath. Okay, Jericho to Zarephath. Now he would have followed the roads, but that's as a crow flies is a line from Jericho to Zarephath. Jericho to Zarephath is about 160 miles. If a man can walk about 20 miles a day, how many days minimum would it have taken Elijah to get to Zarephath? It would have been 88 days. What is a widow? Well, we know what a widow is a person who doesn't have a husband. Who was to care for a widow? According to 1 Timothy, if a widow has children or grandchildren, they should learn first of all to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family, and so repairing their parents and grandparents for this, as it is pleasing to God. So who cares for the widow is her family. Now, if she doesn't have a family, she's destitute. There was no Social Security during this time, obviously. So he arose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, indeed a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Please bring me a little water in a cup that I may drink. And as she was going to get it, he called to her and said, Please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. Why do you think Elijah met her at the city gate? The city gate is where a lot of action happened. There was the market and various things. He wouldn't know where to find her. So most likely she will be at the city gates or the town market. And what happens at the city gates? As I said, that's pretty much what I told you. Let's see. The judging and hearing cases often happen at city gates. And what often existed near the city gate? And we have 2 Samuel 23:15. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gates of Bethlehem." So often near the city gate was also the well. Why do you think she was gathering sticks? Probably to build herself a fire to cook. And okay. So she said, "As the Lord your God lives, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a bin and a little oil in a jar. And see, I'm gathering a couple of sticks that I may go in and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." There are two possible reasons why she had as little as she did to eat. What are they? Possibly because of the famine, but also because she's a widow. She may not have had people to take care of her, and her son seems to be too young to take care of her. What two things did she have? She had flour and oil. Who else was she going to prepare bread for? Her son. Do you think she knew who Elijah was? Why or why not? Now, she says, "As the Lord your God lives." So she must know that he's a prophet. Does seem to mean then that she would know who he is. Why do you think she said the Lord your God? Because it wasn't her God. The Hebrew God wasn't her God. Interesting that God sends Elijah clear outside of Israel to find someone who doesn't even believe in the Hebrew God. And Elijah said to her, "Do not fear. Go and do as you have said, but make me a small cake from it first, and bring it to me, and afterwards make some for yourself and your son. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth." Fulfilling Elijah's request required faith on the widow's part. Why? Because that's all she had. And he said to make him a cake first. So that means that she would have even less so for her son and herself. But he says that the flour and oil will not dry up. And she has to have faith that what he's saying is going to be true. Why do you think Elijah asked to be fed first? To see her faith, to see if she was willing, to see if she would be willing to accept the fact that he could provide this for her. What two miracles did Elijah promise? That the bin of flour would never be used up and the jar of oil would never run dry. So she went away and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and her household ate for many days. The bin of the flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to Elijah. Jesus talks of this widow in Luke 4:24-26. And it's listed below. Then he said, "Assuredly, I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But I tell you truly, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine throughout the land. But to none of them was Elijah sent, except to Zarephath in the region of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow." What do you think Jesus meant? He meant that there was nobody with enough faith that God could work with in all of Israel. Now it now it happened after these things that the son of the woman who owned the house became sick, and his sickness was so serious that there was no breath left in him. So she said to Elijah, "What have I done to you with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son?" And he said to her, "Give me your son." So she took him out of her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying. and laid him on his own bed. Then he cried out to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, have you also brought tragedy on the widow with whom I lodge by killing her son? So this is what the houses looked like at that time. Upper rooms were on the roof. The flat top would be used for many things. Sometimes a lean-to where a full additional room was built, with their stairs on the outside of the building. This way Elisha could come and go without disturbing the widow and her son. Was, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Was Elijah to blame for the death of her son? No. Does Elijah know he can save the boy? No. Do you think Elijah is questioning God's judgment regarding the death of the boy? Why or why not? Yeah, he seems to be questioning God's judgment. He went up there and now the boy is in danger. And you can also say he's not questioning his judgment, but his plan too. So you can look at it either way. As he stretched himself out on the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him. Then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came back to him, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, See, your son lives. Then the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord is in your mouth is the truth. So she wasn't convinced by the miracles of the bread and flour, but she was convinced by the health of her son, which tends to indicate to me that this was why God did it in the first place, to change her faith. And I'm answering the opinion question here. Why do you think God took the life of the boy only to return it? For her to finally believe in this, the God of Elijah. So that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.